Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to do a top 10. The topic of the top 10? Top 10 couples in wrestling. With us being just a few days away from Valentine's Day at the time of recording, I figured it might be an apropos subject. Now, there are some things before we get into this. This is purely on-screen couples. A lot of these were couples in real life as well, but we're purely basing it what they did on screen. And with that being said, so you won't see like married couples that didn't wrestle together or weren't packaged together, like Charlotte Flair and Andrade, who are a couple, but they're not packaged as such. But anyway, I digress. Time to jump right in. And our number 10, Rusev and Lana. And even though he goes by Miro now, I thought they were an awesome pairing. She kind of helped him in the early parts where he was still a little bit green to get some heat. You could obviously tell they were very much in love with each other. Rusev Day, Lana Day, all that stuff was fantastic. They did suffer from some bad writing in the WWE. WWE tried to split them a few different times. But I always thought their best product when they were in WWE was together as a couple. And even now that Rusev's gone on to be Miro in AEW, he brings up Lana in his interviews, and not by name, but he says my hot wife or my beautiful wife or sexy wife, and everybody knows it leans back on that relationship and that pairing. And I thought they added a lot to each other. It was very much a symbiotic relationship of a great wrestler and a great valet put together. Now our number 9, probably one that a lot of people watching this may or may not know, Jimmy Jacobs and Lacey. Now, I've said it before, I'm a huge fan of Ring of Honor, have been since the beginning of Ring of Honor. One of the greatest stories that I think Ring of Honor ever told was Jimmy Loves Lacey. Based on pure story-wise, Jimmy was the emo kind of guy, and he chased Lacey to the point that he even made a hysterically dated movie or a music video now where he referenced about her putting her in her MySpace top 10, which dates it to the time, or top 8 for him. The top 10 is what we're doing. However, the story was fantastic. Jimmy chased Lacey. Lacey didn't ever seem to want to give him the time of day. Then when he became the Age of the Fall version of Jimmy Jacobs, Lacey came along and he found out that love doesn't conquer everything. It was a fantastic story, and they even played up to it. Emo Fight by GCW this year played up to it where Lacey made the save for Jimmy Jacobs. So it's a great thing for me. I think one of the stories at Ring of Honor, which is a company not really known for stories, one of their greatest stories, two of their greatest gimmicks. I mean, the Age of the Fall was a great story in itself, but the Jimmy and Lacey aspect of it was just fantastic, in my opinion. Now, coming from that, our number 8, Edge and Lita. Edge was already on the path to becoming a megastar main event guy, and Lita was coming off of being part of Team Extreme with the Hardy Boys. It played off of a real-life relationship that the two had, and I think Lita really elevated Edge to where he could become a main heel. I don't think that the fans would have vehemently booed Edge as much as they did if Lita wasn't part of the package, and I think she really added in some of the historic things, the live sex celebration, stuff of that nature, their mixed tag team matches, all the stuff they did together. I thought they were really fantastic. Like I said, really elevated Edge and Lita as well. Lita became a champion during this time, became a heel character, gave more depth to her character as well. So I thought it was a really great pairing and a great way to put this new power couple into the forefront in WWE television. I thought it was awesome. Now our number 7, one for the older fans here, Exotic Adrian Street and Miss Linda. If you watch a lot of interviews and a lot of shoots that talk about these two, you find out that these guys were really inseparable. And it was an amazing thing. Adrian Street was a very strange and revolutionary gimmick. And yes, maybe problematic now because it played into a lot of homophobia at the time. However, to also put the other side of that, he was led to the ring by this beautiful woman who just so happened to be his wife, Miss Linda. So while he was this androgynous, cross-dressing, some would say, and again, for the time, homosexual type character, a stereotyped homosexual character, the addition of Miss Linda really put it into that weird and hard to understand category, especially during the time. And again, I gotta preface that. We're talking 40 years plus now ago. The world was a lot different place and didn't understand the different little nuances, and this played on. And then, as everybody knows, I mean, historically, it was a bad time, but they did this very well. He became one of the iconic characters of his generation. She was right there with him. I thought it was a fantastic pairing, and I thought it was a fantastic group, and I love Adrian Street. He was someone that, if he was on your television screen, you couldn't turn away because you never knew what he was going to do. Now our numbers, coming off of that, our number 6, Booker T and Sharmell. I love these guys. I love Booker T, especially during the King Booker, Queen Sharmell run. These two together really got it. They really understood how to play off of that dichotomy, how to play off of who they were and who they were trying to portray. I really enjoyed this. The only gripe I have with this is it was such a short time. I think Queen Sharmell isn't as appreciated for what a great character she was. Part of that is being that she's standing next to Booker T, one of the great characters of the last 30 years. And a lot of people just don't want to recognize how awesome and how much she added to that product. And I really, again, much like I said with a couple of these other ones, you could feel how much they cared and loved each other come through on the screen, even though, for the most part, they were playing a heel characters. I thought it was a fantastic pairing. Again, added to Booker T, gave him another dimension that we hadn't seen before, and really made the product a lot better. Now, coming off of that, our number 5, Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Precious. Much like I said with Adrian Street and Miss Linda, Jimmy Garvin was a kind of flamboyant, was the word they would say back then, character, and Precious was his valet. It was kind of, to me, I thought this was a really good one. He also had another valet, Sunshine, which also worked very well. But to me, I can't think of Jimmy Garvin without thinking of Precious. The two together are so symbiotic. She was so integral to the character that Jimmy Garvin was portraying, to being what made him what he was, that I couldn't think of anybody else that would do better, whether it would be in George or Jim Crockett Promotions or World Class Championship Wrestling. Jimmy Garvin was always a mainstay as a heel, and Precious was always someone that was kind of put up in, she was put up as, if you want, you could get Precious kind of thing all the time. They always did silly gimmicks like that. just a fantastic pairing. Perfect to me. I don't think that Jimmy Garvin, and this is no disrespect to Jimmy Garvin, I don't think he would have reached the heights he did if he didn't have Precious as part of his presentation. Now, coming from that, another group from that same era, our number 4, Tully Blanchard and Baby Doll, the Perfect 10. Another example of how a valet enhances a wrestler. Tully Blanchard, one of the great wrestlers of the 1980s, absolute stud in the ring, one of the original 4 Horsemen. His pairing with Baby Doll gave you that feeling where you kind of wanted to cheer for Baby Doll while you wanted to boo Tully Blanchard because he treated her so poorly. And it fed in and helped build his character. Again, much like a lot of these people I said on here, it was kind of like Tully Blanchard, you have this Kobe steak, and then here's Baby Doll to go alongside it, a lobster tail. So there you have a perfect situation with a perfect valet for a wrestler that was already really great. Again, another package that I think enhanced what Tully Blanchard was doing, and it enhanced his whole stature, made him become one of the legends that he really is. Thought it was fantastic. Now, coming from that, our number 3 is long been a staple of this channel. I'm a huge ECW fan. My favorite story in the history of wrestling is Raven versus Tommy Dreamer. And coming out of that story, we get the pairing of Tommy Dreamer and Beulah McGillicuddy. Again, much like I said with the Ring of Honor stuff or some of the older stuff that you may not have watched, ECW didn't get watched by as many people. But the whole story, the whole arc where the backstory was Beulah McGillicuddy was a fat girl in a camp that was in love with Tommy Dreamer, the jock, but Tommy Dreamer wouldn't give her any time of day. Raven brought her back many years later to be his valet. Tommy Dreamer ends up taking her from Raven because Raven mistreated her. The whole Beulah got pregnant angle, the whole everything they did there, to the point where the Dudley Boys breaking Beulah McGillicuddy's neck gave so much sympathy to Tommy Dreamer, who was already beloved. It just was the perfect parent. Again, their storyline, the whole story worked so perfectly. It was one of those things where Paul Heyman and the wrestlers and valet in this case that he had portraying the characters were in perfect harmony and made, in my opinion, the best story that wrestling's ever told. Side note, fun fact, the dress that Beulah McGillicuddy wears when she gets her neck broken by the Dudley Boys, I actually own that dress. It came up on, believe it or not, it came up on an eBay auction being sold by RF Video, who, I know the problems. Through chain of command, it did check out. It is authentic. It did get notes from Tommy Dreamer himself about it. So yes, it is the authentic thing. But I own that dress just because it came up and the story to me was so great that I wanted to have just that little piece of it. Again, Tommy and Beulah, part of my favorite story ever. Beulah to me, and I hate to put it this way because I hate how objectifying it sounds, but to me, I thought that Beulah was probably the most beautiful woman in the history of wrestling. Just in my opinion. You may have something different, and you're welcome to that. I hate bringing up looks when I mention women because of the connotations that that's all they're worth, when it really isn't. She was fantastic. Her Beulah's box segments, her match with Bel Alfonso, all of that stuff was fantastic. Just had to throw that in. Now, coming from that, How do you top your favorite story in wrestling? Our number 2, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Going from the drugged up marriage that they had where she got married to Triple H unconscious, to the McMahon Helmsley era, to the Authority era. They were the main storyline, or part of one of the main storylines, in WWE for 15 years. Whether on screen they were together or not, whenever they would be together, they were the power couple. He was a champion, she was a women's champion. They controlled the narrative. They were the behind-the-scenes people, on-screen authority figures. And they made such a dent in wrestling. Like love or hate the era that they did it, a lot of people bagged on the era when they would come out and cut 20-minute promos in the ring to start every Monday Night Raw. I would take that over what Monday Night Raw has given us for the last 2 or 3 years any day of the week. It was light years better than what we have now. I digress. But because of where they are, their stance in the company, that's what puts them up this high on the list. Again, another perfect pairing. Now, before we get to our number 1, like we always do on our top 10s, we give a best of the rest, basically couples that were considered for this list but didn't quite make it for whatever reason. And before we get to that, make sure you like, comment, share this video. Let me know if I put someone up too high, someone down too low, and I did the opposite. Someone up too high, someone down too low. Let me know if there's a couple that you like better that should have made this list that isn't on it at all. With that being said, the first couple from our best of the rest, another ECW standby, Shane Douglas and Francine, the franchise and the head cheerleader. This was another thing, much like the Tully Blanchard baby doll pairing. This was an updated version of that. It really added to the character that Shane Douglas was trying to play. He was playing basically an updated version of Tully Blanchard as the best wrestler in the company, who's also a smartass, who's also an asshole, who also gets the prettiest woman, which in this case would be Francine. Just a fantastic story again. I love their pairing. I love what they did in ECW. I won't go off on a tangent like I did a couple with Tommy and Beulah, but yes, they were another fantastic pairing. Another reason why ECW was what it was. Next up on our best of the rest, probably to me, one of the funniest and most entertaining couples ever in wrestling history. Mark Henry and Mae Young. God, I loved it. I know it's wrestle crap. I know it's the hand being birthed. But there was something so magnetic and so enjoyable to me. The only reason I left this off the list is because of the length, the shortness of it, the brevity, and the fact that there wasn't more done with it. But to me, this was some of the funniest stuff WWE ever did. Mae Young really brought a lot to the Mark Henry character. The Mark Henry character at the time wasn't much of anything, and Mae Young really added some dimensions to it. I just love it, and who doesn't love Mae Young? Who doesn't love Mark Henry? I mean, honestly, again, if it would have been a little bit longer, a little bit more impactful, if she was still there when he was a world champion, they probably would be on this list and probably pretty highly ranked, just because of how much I personally enjoyed them. And last but not least on our best of the rest, Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. Gargano, I know. I've heard people pronounce it both ways. I've always pronounced it Gargano. I don't know why I pronounced it Gargano the first time. But anyway, I digress. Their stuff in NXT as The Way was really good. Their mother and father to Indy Hartwell and Austin Theory, that was so good. Everything on there, Even before that, their tag team that they ran on the Indies was awesome. I I can't wait at this time. We don't know what the future holds for Johnny. I believe Candice is still employed by the WWE, but she's out on pregnancy leave. So hopefully, whatever they decide to do, whether that be Impact, whether that be MLW, NWA, AEW, wherever they decide to go, hopefully they can put the two of them together, because to me, they were one of the really bright spots in NXT, one of the reasons I would tune in and watch NXT. So hopefully they get back together at some point. With that being said, we are going to go to our number one, probably anticlimactic, because I'm willing to bet a lot of you have figured it out before I even got here. Before you even clicked on the list, you figured out who the number one was. And that is the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. No valet in the history of wrestling was more important to a wrestler's character than Miss Elizabeth was to the Macho Man. And Macho Man, I've said it before, I'll say it again a million times. Top 5 wrestler, in my opinion, of all time. A guy that if Hulk Hogan didn't exist, you could have easily slotted him in as the face of the rock and wrestling era. A guy that had every skill you could ever want from a wrestler. Add into that Elizabeth, who was a catalyst for storylines, whether it be the Mega Powers exploding, whether it be Georgie Animal Steel trying to take her from him, whether it be the Macho Man's introduction into the WWE, where all the managers were basically trying to bid for his services, and Miss Elizabeth gets announced as his manager, which is actually a valet manager, same thing. All the way up to, when she comes back and saves the Macho Man from Sherry and they reunite in WWE. They're running WCW, even though I know there's problems. I get that. But we're specifically talking about the on-screen coupling. And I thought they were fantastic. So much so, their story is so great that it's even made its own Dark Side of the Ring episode based on just them. Again, I know, I've seen it, I know, and I've heard all of this stuff. Yes, it wasn't perfect in real life, but on the screen, it was absolutely perfect. My favorite pairing, my favorite couple. I think the greatest example of a wrestler and valet pairing that there's ever been in professional wrestling. Now, with all that being said, again, please like, please comment, please share. I really love to hear you guys' opinion on this. Let me know what you think down here in the comments. Share this out there. Like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Ding that bell so you can get notifications. And if you've stayed on to this long, I know you're a friend of the channel and I know you enjoy what I'm doing here. I know I said fan of the channel last video, but friend is what I actually mean, because I consider you guys friends. If you're a friend of the channel and you stayed here this long, put in the comments Valentine's. And to all you couples out there leading up to it, just a couple days away, happy Valentine's Day. My name is George Coles, and this has been Heel Heat's Top 10 Couples in Wrestling.